Okay, so Growing Change, it's all yours.
Yeah, so we decided to name our presentation Growing Change. My name's Blake Linehan. I did my undergrad here, just finished in this past March in Geography and International Studies, and now I'm pursuing a master's degree in Real Estate and Construction Management.
My name is Joanne. I did my undergrad here as well at DU. I finished last June. My major was Finance and Construction Project Management. I'm currently working as a project engineer for Friends and Pittman General Contractors.
Hey, my name is Shara Sakari, and I did my undergrad at Georgia Tech. I did business management, and I'm here for the master's in the real estate and the built environment. And Growing Change is our project. We focus most of our efforts in the Sun Valley district. So before we really got down to what we wanted our project to entail, we had to figure out what issues we really wanted to address, and in order to do that, we went through research provided by DHA, Sun Valley Eco District, and CityCraft.
So the Denver Housing Authority did a residence needs assessment, and they identified some of the serious issues that are occurring in Sun Valley now. And one of the ones that we decided to focus on was food. And as you can see on this map, this is a map from the USDA Economic Research Service, and it's a food desert map. So all of the yellow locations, as well as Sun Valley falls right here, these areas lie within a food desert, which means that the residents have low income and low access. And low income, as you can see, the median income in Sun Valley today is $9,363. And that's an incredibly low number if you compare it to the rest of Denver, where the median's hovering around $40,000 for median income throughout the rest of Denver. There's a huge need for economic development in this area. And so low access is defined as 0.5 miles from the nearest supermarket. And at the same time, there are some certain food deserts where more than 100 housing units within these regions don't have access to a vehicle. So they're greater than 0.5 miles from the supermarket, and they have issues accessing public transportation to get to the healthy food that they need. And through that DHA residence need assessment, they identified that 99% of residents in Sun Valley have low access to healthy food.
Low access to food also stems from lack of employment. It's really hard to get healthy food when, first of all, you don't have a car to drive there, and then in addition to that, you don't have the money to buy the food you need, because fast food's cheaper. Junk food is cheaper than healthy food right now, and that's just the way it is. Just a statistic is 68.4% of working age residents in the Sun Valley District are unemployed. And the reported barriers for work are the inability to find a job, lack of reliable transportation, lack of resume, difficulty with stress, and poor reading skills. All of these things combine to really put the Sun Valley resident at a disparity to get access to healthy food.
So Sun Valley today, just kind of going more into the reason why they have inconvenient access to healthy food. It calls for a need for a wide range of services to assist in becoming more economically self-sufficient. Most importantly, transportation, like they've mentioned, they don't have vehicles. There's in great need of more public transportation that can get them to and from where they live to a grocery market that contains healthy, affordable food. They also need computer skills. Most of them, again, they don't have the reading or intellectual skills needed to access any computers. Most of them, they can't really afford expensive technology. They are also in lack of education, and it calls for a need for GED classes that should be available to Sun Valley residents. Half of the heads of household do not have a high school diploma or GED. 17% have a GED only, and the remaining 34% complete high school. In order to get quality jobs and careers, you need the education to support their career development. And one of the needs for Sun Valley is to providing that quality education that they need, so it eventually can be developed into their own personal career development and then personal into community development. Another importance is that there's a need for providing the resources and available options to pursue those, because a lot of them either don't have jobs, or some people have jobs that are not paying them good. So it needs a flexibility where they can work and do school. So they have the option to pursue education that fits their schedule and their lives. We want to make sure that Sun Valley is a thriving and prospering economic hub, because they do not have access to education. It leads to unemployment, which leads to low income.
So those were some of the main pieces of information that we gleaned from the Denver Housing Authority's community or resident needs assessment. We decided that we wanted to look into the CityCraft critical issues that were developed for all of West Denver, even though we were focusing in Sun Valley, because we found a lot of overlap there. So the main critical issues that we wanted to focus within were the access to healthy food and lifestyle, the cradle through career education, and then the job creation and economic development. But at the same time, we wanted to try to see if we could extend our project to at least touch on all of the critical issues throughout West Denver. At the same time, we thought that the GROW priorities, which were created by the Sun Valley Eco District, which are specific to the Sun Valley community, as just that community as a single unit, were really more important for our project, because we tried to focus and center ourselves within that Sun Valley area.
The first and most important GROW priority that we are addressing is food. These are the GROW priorities that the residents came together and they decided, what does food bring us? Why is it important? It's not just feeding us. Food celebrates culture. If you go to a different country, do you go eat Subway, Pizza Hut, Domino's? No, you want to go to a local place. You want to go to Italy and have their pizza. You want to eat some fresh pasta. You want to see what the culture is, and you do that through food. And with Sun Valley's diverse population, culture is a huge part in food.
And I don't know about them, just living in Korea. So I grew up in Korea for the first 12 years of my life, and then I moved to Illinois. But in Korea, we see food as sharing. It's not just going to a place and eating, but it's a social environment where we sit down and talk. And just going to the drinking culture is very different too here, is what I realized. When I go to a bar downtown with my friends here, all they do is just stand there, get drunk, and drink. Right, drink and get drunk. In Korea, the way we drink it, we sit down, we order food, and we drink with the food. Here, you go to a bar, you just order drinks. You eat before you go out, and you pregame wherever. But in Korea, we sit down with food, with drink, and we share our life stories. And that's, I think, one of the things that we really wanted to emphasize in our project, that food is just more than food. It's more than nutrition's in your body, but it's a way of sharing with the community, sharing your culture, sharing who you are as a person.
Creating lasting connections over meals is
Right.
something that happens very often. It's something that you learn, that sometimes the best connections that you can make are over a drink, not in the classroom, not at work.
Food also goes and provides economic opportunities. One of the, I would say, not easiest, but what's the word I'm looking for? Most prevalent startup, food trucks, restaurants. It's an easy entrepreneurial endeavor. Thank you. It's an easy entrepreneurial endeavor because people know their food. They know what they like, and that's what they want to share. It's one of the easiest things we can share. It cultivates community amongst neighbors. You go over to borrow a cup of sugar. You say, hey, making this dinner. You want to come over and try it out? And you make friends that way. Placemaking through food. This kind of ties in with the economic opportunity. It gives you a place in the community. Say, hey, this is Bob. He owns the restaurant down the street. You should go try his food out sometimes. And so Bob is known as that restaurant owner. He creates that food, which also creates memories for those people who went into those restaurants.
So one of our grow priorities that we also focus is providing opportunities. Just some of them include create a nexus of culture and food. Again, because it really lacks access to quality and healthy food that has various nutritions that, especially because Sun Valley is just swamped with all the young kids, it's really important that they get the nutrition that they need in order for physical as well as emotional growth. Also, there's a really strong diversity that exists in Sun Valley, so we wanted to create the two components together. And again, like I mentioned, we wanted to reflect the diversity and the culture that exists within Sun Valley through healthy food. And we also wanted to provide some commercial business opportunities. We'll discuss later how that really ties into the project that we came up with, but we wanted to provide economic, self-sustainable economic growth within the community through creating new businesses, attract and leverage investments into those commercial businesses. Again, that comes with the job training opportunities because in order to run the business, it's important that they understand how it works and to run the place and operate the businesses, and that includes having the integrated job training facility, increasing jobs in the neighborhood, and we were hoping that we were tying this opportunity to grow priority into our project by creating jobs for our Sun Valley residents. Another growth priority is we wanted to focus on youth and their education because like Blake mentioned, there's a lot of kids that are 18 and younger and a lot of young adults that live in Sun Valley District, and a lot of them don't have good access to education, so we wanted to increase those educational opportunities and make sure that we're hitting all ages, anywhere from elementary, very young kids from 7, 8 years old, all the way to 18-year-olds and higher that didn't receive any quality education. We also wanted to prioritize family and the young kids that exist within Sun Valley, and just provide as many programs and as many learning opportunities as possible through our project. And then shared use, future development opportunities are also one of the areas that we wanted to focus on.
Another grow priority where we really thought our project could excel was within connections and open space. So as you'll see in a few minutes, our project tried to create a new open space for these residents to enjoy, but one that works with the natural environment in this area and really works to enhance and help the natural environment, because currently Sun Valley is surrounded just generally by lots of parking lots, and the South Platte River runs through it, and you have those industrial corridors right along the river itself. And then you have these residents living right next to that. And when you're living in that kind of environment, it's not a healthy space. And something that I think people have been learning in the more recent years is the fact that the environment that you're living in really can change how your level of productivity, your level of happiness. And so we wanted to create a place that people want to come to, and that brings us to connections, because we thought that we want to increase the connectivity of Sun Valley to the rest of Denver, but we also want to increase the level of connectivity between residents in Sun Valley. So that's social connections, as well as this idea of this new digital connections where people can come together via a platform or via an application, and it can really enhance the way that they are able to perform.
I know for me growing up, I grew up in Gillette, Wyoming, and it was very outdoors. Just going outside, and me and my best friend played in the park right in front of his house all my life, and that's how I cherish that relationship. And that's when we get together, we play. It's what we do. And I think open spaces are really important to have in neighborhoods, because when you're in a city, it's hard to go out and play. You don't have front yards. You can play in the street, but it's dangerous. You can have cars coming. So open space is necessary.
And that was opposite of me. I grew up in the city in Korea. I lived on the 10th floor with no backyard, no front yard. I had my room, I had a piano, and indoor was my life. And that's how it is in Korea, because there are so many people with such a small land that it's a privilege. So when I moved to Illinois, I used to have bonfires with my friends, and that's how I learned the American culture of just how to behave socially, because you're not always indoor on your computer. Like the way we bonded with my friends in Korea was to play computer games, and that was strictly indoor. We're all looking at the computer screen, whereas in high school here, we were outside in the backyard, you know, with the marshmallows, and that was just kind of different for me, and that helped me to shape my Korean American identity compared to Korean identity. So, and social health is really important because it really changes a person's behaviors, and I feel like my personality changed because of my experience. So we wanted to really focus on the social health portion too.
Creates a learning environment outside of the classroom. So the site that we chose is here on this, what is currently an Excel, it's like a storage for water
tanks,
storage
yeah.
tanks. And so the main things that we took into consideration here was the proximity to the Denver Housing Authority homes. So this is the affordable housing, which they plan on replacing it unit for unit. So this area will be redeveloped as new affordable housing. There's an elementary school right here underneath the word school. You have the river here. This is a kind of your connection to nature. And then you also have the Broncos Stadium right around there. And that's going to give it a little bit more of a connection to the rest of Denver, because on those game days you're going to have a huge influx of people coming towards this part of the city. And we wanted to be able to create a way to draw those people to come and to make Sun Valley a part of Denver more than just an isolated community on its own.
Yeah, and we just kind of wanted to make sure that Sun Valley is keeping up with the rest of the development that's occurring throughout the West Denver. Just my personal experience with my company. I think it's on this side, we're building a new medical facility called Rocky Mountain Internal Medicine, and the owner of the medical facility is actually, I don't know if he's a doctor or he's a developer, because he bought a bunch of old houses on that street and he's turning into a multi-use development purposes. So he's building all the condos and all the commercial spaces. They actually built a new library on the other side, and then they have a spot for their architectural development company over there. And from my understanding, the medical facility is also open to the community, where they're doing a lot of research medically. So we picked that spot because it just fits in nice with the rest of the development. So this is actually, so our project is divided into two parts. There's an indoor building that we are envisioning, and then there's this whole outdoor space that we can explain further. But we decided to name our indoor building Sun Valley Corporate Center, CVCC shortly. But basically what it is a quad level shipping container building where each floor has about 20,000 square foot, serving unique and diverse yet interdependent functions. We can explain more in detail floor by floor, but it'll be made out of like a concrete shell with shipping containers within. They're recycled.
It's to create that modular feeling in it, so you have different rooms, but it's using a recycled and sustainable method of construction.
Just to kind of give a visual picture of what we're envisioning to look like. So this is a shopping center thing in Korea where I went. It was really cool because the entire building structure was made out of recycled shipping container. And after doing some research, it's fairly cheap because they're recycled and they're about to be abandoned. And they just turn into really nice building stuff. And then there's actually a restaurant called Avanti's downtown. They also use this idea of recycled shipping container to drive down the construction costs. So all they have to do is make this concrete shell of a building, and they stuff it with recycled shipping containers, and actually makes it into a nice section restaurants. So like if you walk into Avanti's, you can find this really big open area for drinks, for seating areas, and then each cultural food is represented by each shipping container. So there's Italian, there's Asian, there's Japanese upstairs, there's Mediterranean. So we got the idea from those places, and this is just a visual picture of what we were thinking.
The shipping containers can get really big. While I was doing some research, and there are shipping containers that you can purchase for around $2,000 that are 2,800 cubic feet of space. So that's a good sized room to put to use how you want. They're very flexible as well, because it's basically like a portable room that can just be added in.
You can cut it, you can modify it, but the reason why we didn't make the building entirely out of shipping containers but having the concrete shell is because we wanted to be ADA compliant, providing the elevators and the ramps that they need, and it's kind of hard to modify that in that way. So this is another picture of what we're thinking. So this is the inside, what it looks like of that shipping container. This is more like the retail shopping mall, so it's not really an accurate portrayal of what we want to do, but this is just kind of the idea that we wanted to use each one as a separate venue. And we were hoping to create more green spaces inside as well, putting some plants, really bright lighting, a lot of outdoor light. So that's kind of what we were envisioning for the indoor space.
So now we'll go into detail about actually what's going to be in each of these, on each of these floors.
So now the project.
Yeah. This is the good part.
It is food. We know now that it is food. We know now that food is information, not just calories, and that it can upgrade your biological software. The majority of chronic disease is primarily a foodborne illness. We ate ourselves into this problem, and we have to eat ourselves out of it. How can you eat yourself out of it if you can't get to the food to eat it? So that's our first floor of that quad level shipping container, is to be a food co-op. It is modeled off of Westwood Food Co-op. It was done by Revision. It is community owned. Profits stay within the community. It's scalable. The majority of the food in the supermarket would come from sustainable sources that we provide further on in this project. It's all on site. That's going to be most of the produce and anything, the produce and the fish.
Yeah, perishable goods.
Perishable.
The dry goods would come, we would want to source from other local Colorado producers of healthy and responsible producers of food within the Colorado area. Would be the ones, like, where that's what would make up this cooperative market. But it would be resident-led by the members of Sun Valley, and so that the profits would remain within the community, and
initially
the food would remain within the community up to need, and then excess could be sold out elsewhere.
Initially, we would have to outsource the help, just so we get people to come in and start training people in Sun Valley, the Sun Valley residents who are looking for career development. They come in, they see really the front of shop on how to go about stocking a grocery store, how to run it, customer service, which they do that for a couple of years. It's going to give them good experience to go into other places and try to get careers through there. You also have the back of house. They can learn about accounting, resourcing materials, stocking, and in addition, we found that there would be some excess capacity if we did a grocery store. So in the back, we'd like to incorporate indoor mushroom cultivation. It is sustainable, it's renewable, and mushrooms have great market value. So the residents of Sun Valley would have first choice on how many mushrooms they want to keep for themselves to put in the grocery store and in that market, and the rest we could sell and outsource because of their market value.
And we really wanted to emphasize, I've heard of this statement over and over again, we are what we eat. So the more you consume the unhealthy, not full of nutrition, junk food, our just physical body is not very energized. There's a lot of diabetes in those low-income family community because they don't have the money to afford those healthy foods. So they have higher rate of obesity, diabetes, and just all kinds of preventable food-related challenges. And we wanted to kind of incorporate that here where they have affordable, convenient access, walking distance, they can ride their bikes, but just provide that access and the available options for healthy food.
To real healthy food that's grown the right way. That's our intent, is to provide the training and to get food to be grown organically, sustainably, and regeneratively, so that there's never a shortage. That really what we're working towards here is creating an abundance here, where there's so much food coming out of Sun Valley that it can be brought elsewhere, and after it serves the needs of the community.
And by helping them to be physically healthy, we were also hoping that we can provide the emotional health so they can pursue those education, not just physically capable, but also mentally capable of going for their personal growth and development.
On the second floor, we have what we call the culture kitchens. And this is where the cradle through career really comes into play here, because what we have, this is Avanti's, this is the inside of it. So you go in, you have the seating area, you see the shipping containers, they're all separated into different restaurants. This would give residents of Sun Valley a chance to showcase their cultural identity through their food, along with really thriving with their entrepreneurial spirit to create new business. In that culture kitchen, we had about 5 kitchens, and there's going to be a 6th one, and the 6th kitchen is a test kitchen. There are going to be classrooms, which you'll see on the next slide. That classroom will produce kids who want to learn how to cook and go into the restaurant business. What this test kitchen will do is give them the opportunity to create a menu and go down into the real world and see how they fare for about 2 or 3 months, see what works, see what doesn't work, and really get that experience. The 5 main restaurants will be the anchor restaurants. These are the restaurants that people are just going to know are there. They're going to go to the stadium for a football game, and they're going to say, hey, I want some great Ethiopian food. I know that the Sun Valley Cooperative Center, there's some restaurants in there, they have great Ethiopian food. And they're going to come down there, and that's really going to drive up the economy of Sun Valley.
Yeah, it's to create a draw to the Sun Valley area where residents of Sun Valley can come here to enjoy like a family meal from a restaurant rather than cooking themselves sometimes. But at the same time, we wanted it to really bring the rest of Denver here. We wanted to create this destination, a food destination, similar to the success of Avanti really sparked this idea, because we believe that a similar idea, but with this cultural strength that you can find within Sun Valley, these people are really connected to their cultures, and so we think that the food that will come out of a restaurant that's led by a Sun Valley resident can really shine and attract the rest of Denver to Sun Valley. Being
next to the stadium, I know that everyone gets really drunk and they're probably hungry after the game, and we wanted to drive those people to somewhere to get cheaper, affordable, yet healthy food, and especially in Denver market, because a lot of people that live within Colorado are very healthy minded. I think we're voted like #1 in the country for just healthy mindset, and that was the purpose behind it, is to bring that economic gain from not just within Sun Valley, but connect with the greater Denver area. And we really like this idea of the shipping container thing, because I know just working in construction that a lot of the high construction costs do come from the finishes within, and this really drives down the cost. All you have to do is provide the shell and some furniture within and buy the shipping containers and make it all nice, because we really wanted to see this change happen, and we really treated this project as a real project, something that's very practical and viable. So our 3rd floor is our learning floor, where we have various traditional classrooms that just looks like this. We have a couple of monitors, a couple of screens, whiteboards, some tables and chairs. But we also wanted to incorporate the kitchen labs, where they can use the produce and the vegetables and the fruits that are gathered in the backyard of our project, the outdoor space, and then just bring it to here to teach them how to cook healthy food. We wanted to promote the career education through these settings. We wanted to have, again, a couple traditional conventional classrooms, and we also have this kitchen labs that are available with the kitchen equipment, and just teach them how to not just grow, but how to use them to make it into healthy food options. Theory or inside, practical outside, so we're bringing the harvested food from outside and how to make it into the actual food that they can eat. We're also hoping that we can have some volunteers or teachers that can teach them, and we're hoping that these classes are available not only to adults but also kind of family kind of style, where the family can come in all together with the kids. Again, going back to our grow priority for the family and the family education, so make it available not only to the adults but also the kids as well.
And the number of classes that can be offered in here, the variety of classes is just, it can run the whole gamut. I mean, we're hoping that to try to solve some of the education issues, you could offer in the traditional classrooms nighttime GED courses, but at the same time you can offer ecological or ecology classes that work in tandem with the outdoor portion of our project. So you have the, like Joanna said, the theory inside and then the practice outside. You can offer workshops that are going to generate revenue to help cover the operating costs of all of this entire building, where you can offer community residents a membership to the center, and they pay a certain amount, and then non-residents can still come in and pay a larger amount to take a workshop on permaculture design, on composting, on a variety of different, more practical courses.
And Denver itself would have a huge demand for those courses, and that was another aspect of the classroom, was to provide better connectivity to get Sun Valley into the public eye by offering these workshops. So people would go online and they see there's a workshop for permaculture. They're going to say, hey, what's this? So then they'd come down to Sun Valley for the classroom to check it out, and that will bring both revenue and just publicity to Sun Valley.
And we didn't want to assign each classroom to a specific class, because we wanted to have the community vote on what kind of classes they need at any given time. We wanted to empower the Sun Valley residents to make decisions on themselves and what classes that they need, and working with the nonprofit organizations to provide those classes to them. But we wanted to get their input instead of us, here's a classroom for this, but from season to season, from class to class, they can make their own decision too, as for what kind of education that they need.
The fourth floor is our Operations and Collaboration Center. It's pretty much the backbone of the building. It's where all the administrative staff would go. There's not much more to it, but we would have extra space. With that extra space, we'd like to offer that out to all the companies that are working together to revitalize Sun Valley and the West Denver area as a whole, so they could all come together and collaborate within themselves and have a unified working space.
So yeah, in terms of the 20,000 square feet, we think that our administrative and operations for the building itself and for the site itself is probably only going to take about 5,000 square feet, and the rest of that square footage can be used to bring all of those community empowerment organizations, these nonprofit organizations, and other companies that are working towards the revitalization of Sun Valley together, and also allow that creates a greater connection between the residents and those organizations, because in a lot of development projects, I've learned that sometimes it's really important for the organizations to take a step back and find out what's actually needed from the community, because sometimes people go in and think that they know what needs to be changed without really knowing. And so by bringing these different organizations together into a single place, they'll be able to collaborate. They'll be able to give. There's the possibility for internships for residents within the community, for the community members to actually become involved in other organizations outside of Sun Valley that work beyond just Sun Valley.
And we wanted the top floor to reflect the triple bottom line effect, where you're addressing the people, the profit, and the planet. And our business or our project is addressing all of it. We've got the planet in the backyard. We're going to have a department dedicated to the people part. And obviously this is a business, and we all know that a business cannot be complete without some money generated to support the business. So we wanted to address the profit portion of it to make sure that it can be operable and keep going as a business.
So moving to the outdoor space, we have proposed, so the site itself is 200,000 square feet. And so what we decided to propose is an aquaponics facility, 2 10,000 square foot greenhouses that would be placed behind the Sun Valley Cooperative Center. And they would be dedicated to the production of sustainable food. And so the main things that you need to take into consideration when you talk about aquaponics is the fact that it's a closed system. So when we concern ourselves with water, Denver should be concerned with water consumption right now. And the best part about an aquaponics system is that once you put the water into the system, the only thing that you're losing water to is evaporation and leakages. So it's much more sustainable than the constant watering of traditional greenhouse methods. And we also thought that the combination of fish and produce offers a greater variety of healthy food that can be used by the community. And 20,000 square feet is hard, well, at least for me, it's kind of hard to picture how big that is, but I did it, and I figured it out, I pictured it, and it's a lot of space. So it's going to be generating a significant amount of food, and we think that it's going to be beyond the needs of just Sun Valley. This is going to be enough food that, once again, the profit side of things, we can generate some revenue on operations by selling the excess to different parts of Denver, restaurants, other parts of Denver besides Sun Valley. And finally, with that 20,000 square feet, we thought that dedicating around 5,000 square feet, maybe less, depending on community need in terms of food, to a native plant nursery to grow local Colorado vegetation that can be used for restoration projects throughout Denver and xeriscaping projects.
So a lot of this food is what would supply the food co-op that would be downstairs. And when we were talking about theory inside, practical outside, this is what we were talking about. We give classes on permaculture and aquaponics, so they really learn the theory. But I mean, if you've been in a college environment, you know that theory only takes you so far. It's hard to wrap your mind around something, especially in construction, without actually going to the site and seeing how it's being put together. And that's what we wanted to accomplish here as well, is that students would actually get to go see and put their hands on and get real hands-on learning to apply the theory that they learned in the classrooms, which then they could take on to further on their careers wherever they choose to go.
And the closed loop system of the self-sustainability of this environment right here is also mimicked in the greater picture of our project, because again, like, you have fish and then it's just a closed cycle, and we are hoping to use the produce that were harvested from here to use it at the restaurant and also sell at the market, so that it's just, we kind of saw this
closed system.
Yeah,
Self-sufficient, self-sustainability within the community itself. So that leaves, we have a 20,000 square feet dedicated to the building, 20,000 square feet dedicated to the greenhouses, and that leaves us with 160,000 square feet of open space. So we thought that a portion of this open space could be dedicated to a permaculture food forest. And so what a food forest is it's a combination of sustainable design and using creating a natural ecosystem out of all edible foods. So it's layered, where you have your largest tree, like fruit trees, nut trees, creating your canopy, which provides shading for shrubbery, smaller plants, and like your ground cover. But everything is edible. And what's incredible about these, they have a few in Seattle, and I have been working on trying to figure out how to do it in Denver. some. They're incredibly beautiful because it looks like a natural, like a forest almost, like a park, and you can walk through it. But everything that you're walking around can be harvested and then eaten and enjoyed by the community. So this is another source of food for not only the community, but we think once again with this abundance, we're going to be able to service more than just Sun Valley. And what is this one?
So this is the rest of the outdoor space, which is dedicated to Eco Park, and this is supposed to be a system scale restoration model where we continue with that those plants and all the edible food that can be harvested. We also wanted to provide this park area for the families to come in, very family oriented, family friendly, especially for the kids because Sun Valley is in an area where it's enclosed by the Excel plants, the stadium. It's in the middle of the city, right next to all the big, roads and stuff. And we wanted to provide that more green space for the kids within the community. And we were hoping that we can dedicate the rest of it to the families and the youth programs, and just kind of create this mini park.
We kind of took a page out of John's book here with his Noisette master plan. In it, he has the riverfront as a model to what the riverfront could look like for the whole river, pretty much.
The greenway, creating that greenway.
Yeah, and that's what we did here is we want this eco park to really be a model to what the South Platte River could turn into.
Show the community, not just in Sun Valley, but rest of the Denver community, the potentials of the river. I think it's highly masked by all the concrete highways that are right there, and I feel like it's not getting a lot of attention and its need for restoration. So by locating this park right next to the river, we were hoping that this triggers a change within the rest of the Denver community around South Platte River. And we were also thinking about having like a bike path along the river.
What's there, the South Platte River Bike Trail runs right through our site currently.
And make it more use out of it.
Create that buffer between kind of the industry and human side of things and the river itself, so you get that more natural feel to the river ecology. And the last part of our project isn't actually anything physical. It's we decided that it was very important for us to try to create more of a network between all of the food that's being grown in Sun Valley. We found an application called Sprout It, and it's an app that anyone could download on their phone right now, and it basically helps take you through the planning of your garden in your backyard. It tells you what to plant, how to organize it, and then once you plant it, you put the information of the things that you are growing into the application, and it'll give you a time frame on when to water, when things are ripe, when to cultivate. And then we looked at Revision and their creation of this network of gardens, and we wanted to bring those two applications together. So our idea was to have a revision style setup where all of the community gardens all of the backyard gardens within Sun Valley would be linked together on this network on a map where you can look on the application and kind of open up someone's backyard plot and find out what's growing there. And this would essentially create a farm out of all of Sun Valley where residents can communicate with each other and plan and know what they need to grow to create the variety and abundance to service the whole community. So it creates this level of community where if you need for your cooking that night fresh tomatoes, you know that your neighbor has fresh tomatoes on the application. You can go to them and ask them if they are willing to share with you, or you can trade with them. It creates like a whole community out of this currently segmented. I don't know, like.
Well, one thing we forgot to mention earlier is the point of the classrooms when we're teaching permaculture is so that residents can go to their backyards and grow their own garden and grow their own food and also bring that to the market, helping the self-sustainability of the market itself and helping the economy for those families.
And teaching them the skills that they can take it with them instead of.
Which is, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, which is, I was going to say, which is where this app really comes into play is once those gardens are in place.
And we really wanted to keep up with the 21st century, the technology that are available to us, because I mean, I didn't have my smartphone until I got to college, to be honest with you. I know I'm way younger than most of you guys, but I got my first cell phone when I was in 4th grade. I remember it was like a flip phone with black and white and had no camera. I had the flip phone in high school, and I had my first smartphone. I mean, it didn't take me a while to learn how, but just walking around everywhere, it's like all the little kids have smartphones. So we wanted to keep up with the digital nature of our society today, and you know, we're hitting all ages as well, from the kids to adults.
This is just a random idea that just popped in my head right now, but imagine a little kid with a smartphone and he's hungry and just knocks on his neighbor's door and says, "Hey, Mr. Jones, I hear you got some carrots. Can I have some?" It's just an image that popped in my head right now.
So now we wanted to just take you kind of back through and just show the different the different elements of the grow priorities and how they connected to our project. So in terms of connectivity, you have the South Platte Bike Trail running along. This is the site, of course. You have the South Platte Bike Trail running right through the site. You have walkability from the elementary school and from the affordable housing. You have 3 main roads that run right along the edges of the property, and 13th Avenue is one of the main connectors to the rest of Denver for Sun Valley currently. And part of the Sun Valley Eco District plan is to enhance that connection. So this will hopefully create a larger connection to the rest of Denver. That's this connection to downtown. You have the Decatur Federal Light Rail Station, which is less than a mile away. So you have you do have some public transit connectivity. And we thought that in terms of this West Denver master plan, there's a potential to add bus stops along. Currently there is a bus stop here, but it'd be great if there was another one right there for us.
Again, this is kind of visualization of the bigger picture that we're envisioning. So site features, that's the building, the container building that we were thinking about. The Permaculture food forest will be located right there. The aquaponic greenhouses, native plant nursery in this corner, and then just dedicate the rest of the area for a mini park within West Denver.
For the food connections, just to further showcase where all the food would be created, we have the Permaculture food forest. The first floor has the grocery store, and then the second floor has the culture kitchens in there. And the aquaponics greenhouse are in the red. And if everything went to plan and the community took the classrooms, all of this would be food as well.
And we were showing you guys this picture because we broke it out into how is our project representing our ideas into food, to education, to sustainability. So this is an education part, excuse me, where we're reflecting all the educational pieces of it. So like within the building there's the test kitchen, the kitchen labs and classrooms. We can provide the aquaponic education, also the permaculture education as well.
And ecological and like restoration
education
throughout the entire project itself is our hope. Yeah, and so in terms of careers, we think that there is an abundance of career opportunities, and we'd hope that this can become an entirely community-led project within a few years. It might take some time for training, but as you train some of those individuals, they can become those community thought leaders that are going to be able to educate the other members of the community in the future. And you have ecological restoration and park maintenance throughout all of the eco park, operations and cultivation within the greenhouses, as well as you can have educational opportunities there for teachers. The first floor, you have the cooperative market, and we intend on starting a CSA program where you can get your food delivered to your home, so that's another means of employment. Second floor, there's culinary and food service career opportunities. The third floor, educational opportunities for teachers. Fourth floor, the operations, as well as these potentials for internships with the other organizations throughout the Sun Valley area, and then finally you have that permaculture, the food forest operation and cultivation job opportunities.
And the best part of it being community run is not only is it going to give them career education, it's giving them ownership education. It's going to give them the pride of ownership. They're doing this for their community. They're not making someone else money. They're making their kids healthy. They're making their environment healthy, their community healthy.
And it's a really chance for them to voice their opinions and have a say in what their community should look like, and just kind of empower them to be the leaders of their own community and take charge of it.
And then finally, we just wanted to stress the connections to the natural systems. And so the food forest really is an integration of natural systems, and it's fully sustainable. It's not monoculture. It's creating an ecosystem in itself. And that ecosystem is within this native ecosystem that is our Greenway and River Restoration Eco Park. The native plant nursery provides some of the I guess materials needed to create that enhanced and restored area. And we plan on using sustainable and green construction methods throughout the building shell as a whole.
If we want to take it a step further, creating this park will take the impermeable area right now to the groundwater can go into it now, and that's going to reduce wastewater management as well. Stormwater management, sorry.
And
That
that is our project.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Questions?
I have a question. I have two, I just, one, I didn't catch the total square footage of the actual building, the center.
20,000 square foot footprint per floor though, so it's 4
going
stories.
up.
Okay, so 4 floors at 20,000 square feet, okay.
Yep.
And here's my question. So presuming this area because this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the presumption that if they could afford it, and if they could get to it, that this is what they would want. That this is the food they want to eat, that this is the way they want to live, that all of this. Where does that come, how do you have, or how can you make that kind of presumption?
To ensure that people actually want to be eating the food that's grown here?
Yes.
You mean? I think that can stem partially from the fact that Revision is currently operating throughout West Denver and has found, I think they have currently 300 and something backyard gardens, and they're empowering residents to grow their own food.
How are they doing that? Because this is what I'm getting at. You're talking about a population that has been eating what might be labeled as unhealthy food, okay, for some time. Little kids, grown adults, that's what they've been eating, okay. They are, you talk about some of your native plant nurseries and different systems of growing food and all of that. That may be like Mars to some people. Are you with me? I'm trying to ask a question about the gap.
Sure. A big
gap in understanding, the gap in motivation, the gap in just awareness.
Right.
How because if you plop all this down, it's kind of like, thank you for sharing, but who said we wanted that in the first place?
It'll just be run down in a year because no one will want to use it. It's kind of the concern.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm just trying to say there's a gap, right? So how will you address the gap? Because educating them about,
yeah. So
different ways of growing food with fish and
this,
that's interesting, but that's so far off the map from where they might be now.
I forgot the exact number, but I was looking at this article that was done by some research center, and this was just kind of nationwide, but I think some percentage of the nation's population under the age of 18, they have higher obesity and higher diabetes rate, And then because they have no healthy access or access to healthy and nutritious food, and they can't afford it. And then over 99.7% of them indicated that they do want healthy food that are affordable for them, because they're supporting themselves often. I forgot the exact percentage. I would have to go back into the statistics, but it was almost 100% of them indicated that they want access to healthier food.
And a big part of our project came from the Grow Priorities, and that was research done by the Sun Valley Eco District.
Right.
We didn't go and talk to the residents ourselves, so I mean it's a very valid concern, and you're right. We don't know. This is what we got from the answers that we found from Sun Valley Eco District. Currently, there was also they made their own kind of culture kitchen. It wasn't a culture kitchen in this sense. I forgot what they called it, but they had their own kitchen because that was a need that Sun Valley residents expressed, as they wanted a place to make their own food, and they had shared cold storage there as well. And with all those pieces is kind of where we came up with this assumption that they would want this. But having not talked to the residents, we can't give you an exact answer.
So I guess the question really, I mean, I have the same concern that Barbara does, and maybe an additional one, which is I'm thinking about mushrooms and the population that's there. You know, you guys already have a plan for mushrooms growing that contributes, but you know, what if the real need there is a kosher butcher? And I don't know what that community needs, but the question is, how are you going to decide what the best use of that space is and develop it with community input? That we didn't hear any part of the how in your vision, so you guys have created a complete vision. And I know that, you know, there's limitations as a class and you've read lots of things, but the real question is, how are you going to ensure the opportunities and the things that are created really are aligned with the community culture and the community needs, as well as the community capacity?
I think that's definitely part of, that would be more in the implementation where we would take those kind of things into consideration. And in terms of having, like, changing that mushroom area to a butcher area, the intention of the mushroom cultivation facility was just to create a larger variety of food that's available there. And I think that it would be incredibly important to take all, like, a significant period of time to address exactly what the community's wants and needs are and adapt the space to that need. But I think in terms of the grocery store portion and the aquaponics the produce, that is definitely a community need currently. They're living in a food desert, and they are lacking access to a grocery store, realistically. And so the mushroom park might be something that would be worth changing. The reason that we went with that was because of the market value of mushrooms right now. If you give the community that resource, they might decide that they don't want any of the mushrooms, and they're going to sell them to all the restaurants, and that's going to generate a lot of the operating revenue for the
yeah, best economic revenue.
What exactly? Third greenhouse. Third greenhouse. It's just with the new election we had to change our idea.
And that's why we wanted to leave up the flexibility and make sure that this project is community led, so that we get their input. It's them, they're speaking. We don't want to come in as, you know, we were kind of treating ourselves as the more like guidance, give them, you know, the bare bone of the project and modify it as we go. And that's another reason why we picked this site, is because it was just so under potential, but it's got really good square footage of the project, so we can modify as we go. I mean, if we were to be not just students but actual part of CityCraft, then we would do more research by going to in-person interviews, hosting community meetings and stuff like that, to make sure that our ideas are modified and changed to the needs and wants of the community.
Along those same lines, it was like we wanted to create as sustainable of a building as possible. So we would put solar panels on the roof, and say that doesn't generate enough energy to cover the needs of the facility. If the community decided that this was the right call, there's room to dedicate a portion of this field to solar panel generation, to all these different parts. But it's like we were trying to, like Joanne said, create that structure, and then hopefully
It's like
actual.
So from a time standpoint, I'd like to get to the next presentation at 5:30. So,
I
go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. So I'm an architect, and I don't know if John told you this, but John is involved with us actually working on a building similar to this, right? So a lot of questions for you guys. And first of all, I think the Koreans, they drink to drink. So I have to differ there. Okay, but anyway, having said that, so I look at this from several levels, and I guess what's sort of really intriguing in a large picture is that it's really a local solution and reaction to the current condition that we have, which is industrialized food production, food distribution, and consumption, right? Which is creating all these health issues, right? So that you have essentially an urban CSA sort of, right?
That's the goal,
That,
yeah.
right, that can actually address that, right? I think that's pretty interesting. And you know, there are places that are trying that. But the other piece that's interesting, which makes it more interesting, is that you're doing it in an extremely low income neighborhood, right? So maybe this would work if it was a wealthy white suburban neighborhood and people are aware, educated, etc. But that if you can make this work in a very urban, poor neighborhood, you know, that I think that's significant. So there is the risk piece, which is that even though you don't understand how all the pieces come together and what the neighborhood, you know, the ethnic mix, the cultures, their capacity, awareness, that the attempt to do it, I think is commendable. So the part of the process, part of the design, not the building and the 10,000 square feet, is what everyone mentioned here is really the implementation, right? So how do you create?
The how.
There's a readiness as well.
Yeah.
There's a readiness component to it.
No, I think in addition to the readiness is the issue about, you know, the whole framework, the idea for a cooperative is that it's community, and so we're talking about super low income, right? It's one thing for me to be a resident of Davis, California, and to invest in my co-op and then to get that investment back when I leave, but to build a co-op from the ground up in an under-resourced, under-experienced, under-skilled neighborhood is quite a hurdle. I'll just stop there to
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
that's why we made all
Yeah.
these presumptions, because they don't know what's supposed to happen. They don't have all the skills necessary to
Right.
come up with all these ideas. So we wanted to implement that and then modify as we go.
We see it as becoming community-led. We see it as a place that it starts out where our financing would be primarily through grants, and you can get sustainable food loans. I know that there's one, I can't exactly remember.
Colorado Sustainable Food Fund.
They do a $1.5 million loan for replicable urban farming projects that serve a specific need, which is like, so to get this project like up and running, we think that it would take outside resources, it would take other parts of, but then we want to engage with those community thought leaders, the people who want to be a part of this, and use them to empower the community and to get the community involved, and that's where that education comes in. So this is definitely something that it's not gonna open on the first day and be flourishing. It's gonna take time to grow, and it's gonna need that time to build.
I just want to clarify a few things. I'm pretty fascinated with this from the perspective of the research that Sun Valley has done over 7 years, has unearthed this enormous focus on it. And food was the number one issue, and the number one issue in this community, and getting access to all the kind of foods that support their culture, which is actually, we've generated an international food market there now as an initial start, because they want to source and have a way to access their food so they can celebrate their own culture, and they can't get that food here. There's a lot of things they're doing here that there's no way they could have had access. I mean, we provide a lot of access, but they're actually tapping into amazing amount of issues that came out of the community that are very high interest in the food area. From a cooperative standpoint, we've done a lot of work in that area. it is actually we've done low-income cooperative housing, we've done low-income cooperative businesses. It is the most equitable and lowest cost business organizational structure to activate a business. And there are significant resources available to stand those up. And is there ownership training, all of that has to occur. But you also have the Gates Foundation in Colorado, Health Foundation, you've got all these, you've got a massive event. The issue of food and getting at this issue is one of the highest priorities to create food system in urban areas. So, you know, is there challenges? Yes. Are there resources? Yes. Is there, I think, wired in the right way, there is real capacity to stand something up. But it has to be community-based. It has to be community-led. It has to be community-sourced. And the good thing about this is Sun Valley has built that network, has built that interface. And every one of these growth areas has its own community advisory committee that's been active in these areas. So there's a source to actually activate research in that area.
John, can I add one thing?
Yes.
You know, I think the one thing that makes this presentation better is that you have not told us, you're building something and you've got the Field of Dreams approach a little bit, right? I mean, it's based in really great information and lots of it. But you put it over here and you say, if we build it, they'll come. Right? And you have to be careful with all the difference between wants and behaviors is a very distinct chasm, right? So, you know, I think there are ways. Look at how close you are to that school.
I know.
What about if one day lunch was provided in the culture kitchen for the school? Right? Because then you go after these grow areas that you talked about, youth and opportunity, and you reintroduce students to the culture from which they came from. Because obesity is a wonderful thing. None of our native cultures were obese. Right?
Right.
So bring them backwards to go forward. I think what you're saying with Dr. Hyman's work.
And also in the same vein, it's like the current use is just I mean, I actually can't tell you what's in these. If you can go back to that one that doesn't have the box around it, I can't tell you what's in these containment pools, but it's green and it's liquid. And I just know that having that next to a river, an elementary school, and affordable housing doesn't seem like the best use right now.
We actually saw it, so we saw the actual site and it's just dead.
Yeah, it's like
just nothing.
Creating just like that connectivity. You have all of these, it's like a central, although we're not creating actual physical connectivity to the outside, we're trying to create a location that brings the need to the community, and also will hopefully bring connectivity through other people's interactions with the facility itself.
Carl, one more question.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that you envisioned. You did touch here in the question and answer about how you're going to look at funding to get this going forward, but what are some of the other partnerships you envision using in order to really implement this beyond financial partnerships?
A big one was the Sun Valley Eco District, SVED. They have been working in Sun Valley for 7 years now, I think, or maybe longer, and they know the residents, they know the community, they have a presence in the community. So they would be a big one in implementing this idea and really reaching out to the community for it. Revision would be a big one, just
Denver Urban Gardens.
right. Revision would be huge in the sense of starting the food co-op and the gardening, the backyard gardens.
Grow house for operations and needs for that. Revision for the gardens. Denver Urban Gardens for the gardens. South Platte River Environmental Education Program, the SPRE program for ecological education, that could be in partnership with the elementary school as well. The Greenway Foundation for ecological restoration.
And the Food Trust, I think it's what they were called. They're the nonprofit organization that researched the access to healthy food. That has been a nationwide organization. So
The Denver Permaculture Guild.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to happen, so I put it in the backpack.
Okay.
Just to address
Is there any
the
crying thing that has to be said or asked?
Just one. You didn't mention cost. And do you see this happening in phases? And actually, I'll tag on another one, and that is, I think the idea of taking a concept like this, which I think is really well done from a whole systems perspective, taking it to the people and engaging them in the design from this step going forward, even before implementation, would be the way to go. But this looks like the way you've designed it as if the cost factor would not be that substantial, but I have no idea what the cost is.
I
to
think
do
we
this.
left out the cost portion because we wanted to be a community engagement. We don't, this is just a starting point for
Sure.
the community. We didn't want to come up with a cost that is not a true, accurate portrayal of the project
Yeah.
cost. But, you know, once we get the community engaged, we figure out more about what they want and how we can implement those. I think if this were to be a real project that we can move forward with, I think that's where it starts to get a better idea of what the community needs.
In terms of some of the physical construction, the cost of building a greenhouse is relatively inexpensive. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's metal beams and then plastic. You know, it's not overly expensive. And with the building core and shell, just, I mean, in a kind of like vague cost sense, it would be creating that shell, and then the shipping containers are running around $2,000 a piece. So filling the space with those.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of it would be like owners, FF&E. Like
That was the only
furniture.
point, was I think you've come in with a really low-cost solution, which could be financed in a number of ways.
I think we were more thinking we wanted to incorporate those recycled containers and
Mhm.
providing just the concrete shell because we want it to be a financially viable and feasible project. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Thanks, jurors, and congratulations.